Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are here at the Moreness-Project. Syl Sabastian, I feel like you're channeling a little Blake Shelton here today. I'm liking this. Blake?
I have fun. I have fun with wearing different things. It's just why not? I feel that we so wear the same old stuff, and I have fun. People ask me, "Oh, what's happening? Something special?" I said, "No, I just like it. There's no reason." So,
Oh my goodness.
no
Well,
reason at all. Yeah.
thank you so much. Pleasure to have you back here talking about the Moreness-Project and so much more. Would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, what you do before we get started for today?
Uh, Main thing I do is I run life change and self-change programs. These are very extensive, very comprehensive programs, minimum 4 months, because we're really looking to do a true change. And the programs themselves are very different in that I don't teach and I don't preach. I don't ask you to believe. The participant has to do, and they do the things which makes it easy to learn and change, right? So it's built into the programs. Very, very, very unusual, very different, kind of revolutionary in a way, but it's very effective. It really works very well. And you're learning a whole new vocabulary, and you have tools to use, and you're changing your habits, doing all sorts of stuff. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go on later. But that's the main thing. And then also I have a lot of books. I've started publishing them. I'm about to publish books 3 and 4, and on different things, but mostly involving moreness in some way or another. Because moreness isn't just a word, and this comes from me, by the way. I'm the one who started this moreness word. I don't know if you see it around, but I am starting to see it now in people who know me. They're starting to use this. But it's a psychology, it's a philosophy of moreness, and there's a whole moreness culture behind all of this. And Biella, who the book that's coming out, it's called Ask Biella. Biella shares, she answers questions and gives her perspectives and ideas on these various questions. But she's from a greater system that involves a whole big long book series that I will publish. It's written, and I have published it on my blogs, but publish it as a regular book. So this is a culture that is looking towards moreness. And how do you say, well, what do you mean by moreness? Well, they're looking to get more out of life by enhancing who they are, by enhancing their ability to pay attention, their ability to be aware, their ability to be effective and competent, their ability to have self-trust, all of these things, right? So there's a lot to moreness culture. The main thing with moreness culture is it's not our prevailing default culture, which is superiority culture, right? Superiority paradigm. That's the most key thing. So in other words, in moreness culture, I'm not looking to compete to you to see who's the cleverest, who's the smartest, who's the richest, who's the prettiest, all this nonsense. No, none of that. There's no hierarchy. I'm not looking to be better than anybody else. I'm looking to be me. Yeah, that's it.
And being you is good enough. All of us, we need to learn this. Sometimes
Exactly.
Yeah, right?
Right. And now when you say to be me, you can say, well, me, I'm kind of crappy. Well, then learn to be better. So simple as that. Yes. So there are tools. You don't have to accept the fact that all right, I'm impatient and I'm angry and whatever. You don't have to accept that. That can be changed, right? If you don't like it, change it. It's as simple as that. So moreness culture also has all these tools, and that's what we're discussing now. At least our ongoing theme every week, we could go a little further into I'm sharing what Way of Impeccability is about. Now, very important, I'm not sharing, it's not doing it, because doing it is different to sharing what it's about. I'm just giving an idea of what it's about. But to do it is very different to just hearing what it's about, right? I mean, we see all those wisdom memes on the internet, right? I see millions of them, right? How do they make us better? They don't, because we see them every day. Oh, that's so cool. And it is cool. It is awesome. But we just recognize it as value. We don't internalize it. We don't make it our own. We don't change the habits that need to be changed in order to make whatever you see in that wisdom meme useful, right? So it doesn't go anywhere. It's just this idea that you see it and, oh, I'm wiser now that I've seen this. No, you're not. You've just downloaded
You're like,
stuff
no,
to your
you're
hard
not.
drive. You're still the same nincompoop you were before. If you
I
don't
love that
change,
word.
nothing happens, right? You've
Nincompoop.
got exactly. Yeah, nincompoopery is a big deal. It's in the dictionary of power for Way of Impeccability. It's a big word, nincompooperi. Yeah,
I
because
love it.
when we understand that being a nincompoop and nincompoopery itself.
Yep.
Yes, it can be knuckleheadedness, it can be jerkiness, it can be idiocy, it can, to the very extreme, be criminality, right? But in its most
So true.
benign form, to nincompoopery's also got a positive side in this, that when it comes to play, you need to have some nincompoopery, do you not?
True. Yeah.
Yeah, fooling around, goofing around, histrionics, right? They all involve some degree of nincompoopry. So having fun it's, you need to access that nincompoopry side that's positive, right? So we want to be this, and part of Moreness-Culture is to be innocent and sophisticated simultaneously.
Wow.
Yes,
Absolutely. I
wow.
love this.
Yes,
Oh
wow.
my
Yes,
goodness.
wow. Yes.
Wow.
So
Wow. Wow. Wow.
it's huge. It's huge. I love that, because I see it in you actually, Jill. That's why it's resonating with you. Yes.
Of
Very
course.
sophisticated, but I
But I'm
don't think
also
you
nincompoop like. I'm a kid at heart.
exactly, exactly. In other words, I don't think you've lost
Yeah.
your innocence entirely. Yes, you
No.
hold on to it.
Mm-mm.
There's a part of you that still has that
Mm-hmm.
innocence, which is that joy, that eagerness, that enthusiasm, awe, and wonder, and all of the magic that comes with this, right? Is very important. I see as people grow up, they lose that innocence. Why? There's no need for it. You can hold
Mm-mm.
on to it. There's this belief, this idea that maturing is
Yeah.
to lose your innocence. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It's just a belief. It's just an idea. There's no reason that you have to give it up. You can be innocent and sophisticated both at the same time. And you can deliberately maintain your innocence. Because I know from personal experience, I refuse to give it up. Absolutely refused to give it up. This was absolutely crucial. As I saw the death of people when they became adults,
Yeah.
how they died. Yes, they became
Mm-hmm.
these. They became the very people they disliked growing up. They absolutely. I vowed most earnestly to never ever become that. Never ever become that. Yeah. Yes, sobriety and is part of way of impeccability. It's a huge, huge term. Sobriety in the original meaning, right? Not sobriety as in alcohol free. That just it's a usage of the original
Mm-hmm.
term sobriety. But sobriety is like a super sensibility. Yes. It's like you are being sensible and you are serious, you're being mature, you're being responsible. All of it put together gives you sobriety. But that doesn't mean you have to lose your innocence. Absolutely not. It just means that you have a super sensibility. You like do what's right. Yeah. And being innocent is also right.
It's
Yes.
so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, Syl, remind us of your website, how we can contact you, please.
Nobelia.org/connect. Very easy.
All
Yeah, very
right.
easy. Yeah. And Nobelia with an E, Nobela. Because Nobelia it comes from the big uh, fiction series I have. It's a visionary utopian fiction series.
Mm-hmm.
And Nobelia is a planet, and it's the
Yes.
home of the new nobility. Every time I say nobility, people think, sometimes some people, oh, you're talking about what we understand to be nobles or the nobility, which actually just a bunch of horrible people who are manipulating and exploiting, right? They're the very opposite of being noble in history, right? We're talking about nobility as in princes and kings and queens and all that stuff, right? Dukes and whatever. It's a terrible bunch of people, just horrible. But the new nobility or the culture is actually about genuinely being noble.
Hmm.
And the culture revolves around this as a core, right? Now, so nobleness, being noble, actual real nobility, this is the core of the culture. In order to do that, in
Yeah.
order to actually apply nobleness, you need to have all your other P's and Q's sorted out. You need to have your shit together, in other words, in common street language, right? You can't go in
Totally.
wanting to be noble if you don't have your stuff together, if you don't have yourself sorted, because then you can end up falling into the trap of inappropriate application
Ah,
of goodness. Huge concepts, major, major concept in way of impeccability and in Moreness-Culture. We don't realize we can do this. Inappropriate application of goodness. It happens all the time, right? I mean, you probably remember it from when you were a child. You had
yes.
adults that said, "Oh, but this is good for you," and you're like, "Seriously?
Like
Come on,
what?
where? Like what? You think it's good for me, but I know it isn't." Yes. And
Yeah.
you really know, and I'm not talking about eat your vegetables, which is also a topic. I stopped eating vegetables when I was a child, and I never ate them all my life. I
You
never
sound like
suffered any ill health
me
effects from
too.
it. So
I'm the same way.
yeah,
I eat
that's
potatoes,
it.
potato chips.
That's it. Yes, okay, potatoes. Is that a vegetable really? I don't know if it qualifies. At least not
It
in that.
doesn't. That's why I'm joking. Like I really don't eat
Right,
any
right, right.
vegetables.
So potatoes, carrots, I'll eat, but broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage,
Mm-hmm.
all of the stuff, peas. To me, it tastes like I'm eating something that my body says, no, this is wrong to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if I override that, am I not going to override my body's defenses, which tells me when I want to eat
Yeah.
dishwashing liquid or something, said, no, this is poison. This is no good. You got to not eat it. I know it doesn't make any sense to me. But there's maybe at some another point in time, I'll share the history of this. Well, I might as well share it now. It won't be relevant. There's a nice story about this. I gained my independence as a person because of refusing to eat vegetables. So I was about, I'm guessing, 5 or 6 years old, somewhere around there. It may even have been earlier. I don't know. I don't remember the exact age. But this was the age where I was now old enough to go and eat at the adult table. It's a different culture, a different time. Yes, little kids, you ate in the kitchen somewhere, right? So old enough to come and eat at the adult table. So of course, when I ate on my own in the kitchen, and we had servants at that time, yes, I know it's a different life and a different world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they took care of everything, but of course, I would eat whatever I liked, even though they tried to make me do. Nope, sorry. And now I'm going to eat at the adult table. And I had an older brother, an older sister,
Mm-hmm.
4 and 5 years older than me, and a younger sister, about a year and a half younger than me. So, all right, all four of us going this. But now I'm coming to I don't know if my sister came, the youngest one came or not. She might have. Nonetheless, so now we get, and your food gets dished up for you, gets put in front of you, and you got to eat. One of the parts of the culture was whatever was on your plate, you had to eat all of it,
Mm-hmm.
which again makes no sense. Whether you're hungry or not, it doesn't matter. It just blew my mind at the time. It was like really crazy. Anyway, so I eat my food now. Whatever was on my plate, I always thought it was a waste. Don't put on my plate the stuff I don't want to eat. It's wasteful. All right, well, whatever. So I'm not complaining. I'm not stressed. I just eat whatever I can eat, and I leave the rest. I feel it's
Yeah.
wasteful, but so be it. And I don't ask for more to compensate. That's it, right? No complaining. It's like when I look back, I'm like, wow, really, it wasn't even a thought to complain, by the way. It wasn't even a thought. It was just how it was. Anyway, so I don't eat my things. So now my father, who's is kind of an egghead in his own way, you know.
Yes. I love it. An egghead. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, sort of intellectual,
Mm-hmm.
he's a doctor, and he was a doctor and a dentist and an anesthesiologist and a pharmacist and a dentist, anyway. See what I mean? Egghead, right? So we used
So
to call
true.
eggheads, well, another word for them was boffins as well, somebody who's just kind of all up in their intellectual. Anyway, he did a lot of other stuff too. But anyway, so his idea now, right, and was very much into the whole superiority paradigm. And I mean, he was an original yuppie, status and ego and all of this nonsense, right? Anyhow, so he said, okay, well, I got to eat. Well, if I don't eat, there's going to be consequence. I don't say anything. I don't eat. Right. So I don't eat the vegetables, but I don't argue the point either, because I've thought about this beforehand, because I kind of know what's coming here, right? If I don't eat this. And I've laid this out, I've planned my strategy. And that's, by the way, that's why I have this particular background, because I'm busy doing a capital R reading of Musashi's book, a book of five rings, right? And
Oh,
he talks about the way of strategy. Yes, yes. So there's a lot to it. This would be wonderful. We can get into that also another time. But I want to lose my story.
sure,
All
sure,
right. So
sure.
strategy was very important to me. I came out of the box knowing things that I had no business knowing. I don't know how this works, but that's just my life. I never thought about it
Mm-hmm.
then as being unusual, but looking back, I understood strategy very clearly, as I'm going to demonstrate here. So I had this plan, and I knew that if I argue this point with my father, then he's going to have a need in an argument. Any objection I make, he's going to justify the point. Now I'm in a fight and a battle with him. that's not going to work because I know also that he can't lose. Yes. So I have
Yeah.
to find some other way around this. All right. So off we go. So now his way of I'd seen my brother get a hiding for, I don't know, some stupid things. So he took a shoe, just a regular shoe, and give you a hiding with a shoe, a couple of smacks on the backside
Yeah.
with a shoe. Right. But if you've had hidings, you know a shoe's not that very effective because it spreads the thing out, right? Thinner things like belts or canes, those are much more painful. Anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal. So I knew that I'd be able to survive this. It wasn't all that bad. Anyhow, so he calls me up and says, Ben, touch your toes. Now, in his mind, all right, this is about humility. He's looking, it's about me feeling bad and awkward, humiliating me. I don't care about such stuff like that. And I knew it's like, well, I could stand here all day. If you think this is
Yeah.
humiliating me, you got another thought coming your way. But I don't show any of this, right? So, okay, whatever. I just do. But I'm not letting him know it's not a big deal because then it would take that away and he'd find some other way, right? Okay, so anyway, so I come and I get a couple of snacks. But now I walk back to my seat at the other end of the table, right? Because it's
Okay.
kind of arranged by hierarchy, of course. But I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. I'm very deliberately show just a faint bit of disappointment. Yes,
Hmm.
not anger, not annoyance. Because I know if I'm angry and you rebellious against it, you justify the hiding. That
Well,
makes any sense.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. And so,
Yeah, it does. I understood this. I understood that if I fight against it now, it's like,
mhm.
well, if you're angry and you rebelling, my siblings and my mother are going to say, well, you kind of deserve it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. I have not one iota of rebellion. Well, I didn't eat it, and that's my punishment. I'm happy to accept it. That's it. That's the consequence. Okay, no problem. But I'm a bit disappointed in my father and I know this is going to bother him, right? And I go and sit down. So this, of course, the next day, the same thing happens again, right? I go, I take my smacks, bending
Yeah.
down, and the same thing. I'm disappointed. Now, of course, me not reacting in this aggressive way, negative towards it. What's the consequence? My father just starts looking like a bully.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, my mother and my sisters are like, now they're starting to feel for me, not for him.
Hmm.
And it's very clear that I'm willing uh, to do this every day. Of course, nobody likes, when everybody's stressed and upset when somebody's getting a hiding, it's never fun, right? It's stressful for everybody. So I know this. Now I'm leveraging them to put pressure on my father. Of course, he's got a massive, great big ego. I knew this from my very first interaction,
You did.
right? I knew he would not be able to tolerate this. And the fact that I was resigned to this. Now, internally, I knew it's like, well, if I really had to do this every day, that I'll have to find some other plan. I knew I was essentially kind of just had to go through it a couple of times. And then, it's like a bluff in a way, right? I knew it wouldn't last, right? So this was my strategy that it wouldn't last. Because if it had lasted, then I would have been out of luck and I'd have to do something else. But that was it, only twice. And then, there was not even a word about it. Nothing was said about it. It was just accepted. My father didn't want to look like a bully. He didn't want to look bad. And he just sort of ignored me. And there never was any attention to it after that. Now,
Oh,
my siblings still had to eat their vegetables, but I didn't. And it wasn't like, okay, you don't need to eat yours. It just became a non-issue. And this fascinates me how people can simply just take something out of their awareness. It
so
just didn't
true.
exist, right? And so from then on, but they also knew that it was now to get to my freedom, right? So there was a bit more that went on with this, because in me saying I'm willing to take the punishment, right, to do what's right, I set myself up that I've got to maintain that standard. If I'd slipped and basically did nonsense and rubbish, then was foolish or silly or indulgent or whatever, then the whole thing would collapse because it all rested on my integrity. I had to maintain my integrity. So it set me up for, which is the program that I'm doing now, which is Way of Impeccability. I didn't have the words for it then, but that was exactly what I was implementing then. And I had to, because if I didn't, then the benefits, the freedom that I had bought myself, they didn't want to mess with me because they knew that when it comes to doing what's right, I was prepared to put myself on the line physically, right? And I would be a stickler for doing what's right. I'd be impeccable, in other words. And they didn't want to challenge that. Why? Because they were not impeccable. Very
Yeah.
much not so. So they didn't want to expose that. So yes, it's a, and what fascinates me now is that that's what I did then. People say, yeah, but you were like 5 or 6 years old. I say, it didn't make any difference. My thinking is no different then as it is now. I just had more experience now, but the thinking is the same. And I watched this. And later on, I came to think, yes, some things I understood kind of right out of the box for whatever reason. I understood strategy, for instance. I understood the psychology, which I don't know, maybe it's a carryover from the stuff I'm learning now. I don't know how it works. I really don't. But I also feel that as children, we are way more sensible than we realize. Most children, yes. And I
Yeah.
see people give that up. I saw it happen in my peers. They had sensibility, and there came a point in that age, around about that age, right, where they sort of came to realize, wait a second, if I maintain the sensibility, I am going to have caused problems. I'm going to expose the hypocrisy and the nonsense and the foolishness around me. And in that society, that was very, literally very dangerous, right? I mean, I saw people who rebelled against the foolishness, and they just get hidings all the time. I mean, they just get,
Yeah.
you kind of get beaten mercilessly to beat this out of you, right?
Oh.
It's just
Beat it.
terrible.
Beat it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Now, I had another incident right about that time. It's called the bathroom incident. Not that I had an incident in the bathroom, but I came to understand as a result of that, not to share the whole long story, but because we're running out of time here, I see. So, wow, it was a long, my story
It
took longer
always
than I thought.
happens. It always happens. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. But in this incident, it was about an older boy. The school I went to was all grades, which is quite unusual, right? And it wasn't a small school either, so it was a big school, but all the grades. So the senior in that school obviously would be, 11th grade, 12th grade, somewhere around there, was bullying a first grader. I was like, seriously? Anyway, so and this what happened inside the bathroom. We called them toilets back then, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This was not, bathrooms is an American thing, but anyway. So another boy comes in, another senior, and he tells the bully, like, what are you doing, dude? Seriously, these are little kids. Like, how lame are you? Yeah. Anyway, so the bully leaves because he wasn't really beating on the boy, he's just making the other boy cry a little bit. So anyway, just putting pressure on him. But then he tells the two of us, he says, what are you doing here? You should know
Mm-hmm.
better, right? You shouldn't be here now because they had the school bathrooms and we were in kind of a one that was closer to where the seniors were. So he was telling us basically to be more appropriate. He didn't use the word, but that was my understanding. But also in how he said it, he said, you got to understand about that. You need to behave in that's right for you in this situation. Right? Those were I don't remember his exact words, but he didn't spell it out. He didn't use words like appropriateness. But I understood him to mean, at least my takeaway from it
Yeah.
was that I needed to have a social self and a private self, and the two are separate, and it's about appropriateness. Now, having a social self means doing the things that are expected of you and whatever. It doesn't mean being phony. It just means being appropriate in the situation, because and in your private self, then you do the stuff that you want to do and you go. And so I developed this private self and the social self. And the private self was never secret, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, when they hear this, they assume, oh, you had a secret self. No, nobody just ever asked. If they'd asked, I would have told them all about it, but nobody did. That was massively beneficial, because yes, I was a good child and I was well behaved, even though I was naughty also. Yeah, I was just a regular good child. But internally, I had this whole other life, which was fascinating me, right? And I
Right?
always look that when people say about looking at others, I say you never know what's going on inside. Most of my life, I had the social side and private side, and at that time, especially later, when we get after age 10, when I started focusing on awareness consciously, deliberately, it was every minute of the day I tried to figure out, learn, grow more. Right? I had this whole world inside me, which I was not able to discuss it and
Mm-hmm.
share it with others because I'm like in a whole different reality, a different world. I mean, they would have looked at me like I was crazy. So it took me it took me a long time before I was able to share that, not because I was reluctant to or shy to, but simply because of the appropriateness involved, right? I mean, I had to limit my vocabulary, for instance, with my peers when I was like in high school. I had to consciously do that. It was getting me into trouble. No, anyway, so there's interesting stuff about, appropriateness and how it manifests. And way of impeccability, which we've been going through and looking
Yeah.
at all the details, it is based on and built on the philosophy of appropriateness, which I developed. Yes. And it's a very big, extensive thing. It's also called the A plus philosophy. We can get into it another time. But there's an underlying moreness to this. And again, to come back, this is the whole story. It's about this Moreness-Culture on Nobelia. It's founded on this understanding of appropriateness. Now, by the way, nobility and nobleness, right?
Mm.
The pursuit of it, which that culture forms around, this is a bonus goodness by definition. It's not something which to say everybody has to do this. No, it's a voluntary society, first of all. It's not, there's no family there, right? You come
Yeah.
there because you want to engage in moreness. The whole planet is a school, entire
True.
planet, school, all right? Um, the school of nobility, not for nobility, right? Because there's no hereditary nobility involved. But you're there voluntarily because this is what appeals to you. This is what matters to you. You want to learn and grow more. It's not something that they think everyone should do. Not at all. And that's another part of the Moreness-Culture. Has to be voluntary. Has
The
to be voluntary.
Moreness-Culture. I love the Moreness-Culture and project.
It,
And Syl, how do we reach out
uh,
to you to get involved?
Nobelia.org/connect. I'm very easy to connect. You can email me. You can find me on my Facebook group where I do lives every day. You can message me via Messenger. There's all sorts of ways to get into. I even have a call-in thing that you can call me. I did have a response for Samantha that I wanted to add in the call who called last week. It was sitting on my mind, but we'll have to wait till next week. I think we're out of
Yes,
time, right?
absolutely. And yeah, we didn't get
Yeah.
any calls today, but that's okay. Hopefully next
Yeah.
time. Thank you
Yeah.
again, Syl. A pleasure having you here. And spell the website
Oh,
one more time for us.
Nobelia.
Perfect.
Nobelia.
All right.
.org, not .com,
We got it.
nobelia.org.
Aw,
Yes.
thank you so much. All right, everyone, stay
Pleasure,
tuned.
Jill. Pleasure,
We appreciate your time here. Have a
pleasure,
fantastic
pleasure,
day.
pleasure.
Thank
You
you.
too. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.